Bako ran through the dark forest, his breath coming in sharp bursts. Behind him, he could hear the angry shout of men and the sounding of machetes against trees. His fingers held the small pouch tightly, the golden piece inside feeling heavier than it should. Why did I ever touch that cursed thing? He whispered to himself as he stumbled over a root. Bako was an ordinary young man, living in a small village in Zamfara. He worked long hours in the mine, scraping through dirt and rocks in search of gold. The work was very hard and dangerous, but it was all he knew. Every evening, he returned home to his mud brick house, where his younger sister Amina waited for him with a warm meal. Life was simple. Bako had dreams of a better future, but he never imagined how hugely his life would change. One fateful afternoon, while digging in a particularly untouched section of the mine, Bako's axe struck something solid. At first, he thought it was just another stubborn rock, but when he pulled it out, his heart nearly stopped. It was a gold piece, larger than any he had ever seen. The sun hit it just right, making it sparkle like a piece of the heavens. "This is it," Bako said, staring at the piece with wide eyes. He quickly put it into his pocket and looked around to see if anyone had noticed. The other miners were too busy with their own work. Bako decided to keep his discovery a secret until he figured out what to do. That evening, he showed the piece to Amina. Her eyes lit up. "Bako, this is amazing. We can finally leave this village and start a new life." But Bako wasn't so sure. He had heard stories about miners who found gold and ended up worse than ever before. "We have to be careful," he told Amina. "If the wrong people find out, we could be in danger." Despite his caution, news of Bako's discovery spread like wildfire. It started with whispers among the miners. Then the village chief got a wind of it. Some strangers began showing up at Bako's house, asking questions and offering to buy the gold piece. Bako refused them all, but the attention made him nervous. The first real trouble came when his childhood friend Bala confronted him. "Bako, you can't keep this all to yourself," Bala said, his tone sharp. "We've been friends since we were kids. I deserve a share." "Bala, I found it. It's mine," Bako replied, trying to stay calm, but Bala's expression darkened. "Don't be selfish, Bako. Wealth is meant to be shared." Bala snapped before storming off. That night, Bako's house was broken into. The intruders ransacked every corner, but Bako had hidden the piece in a hole beneath his bed. Amina screamed as the men threatened them, but they eventually left empty-handed. Bako knew he couldn't stay in the village any longer. The next day, he packed a small bag and left with Amina. They headed to Gusau, the state capital, hoping to sell the piece to someone trustworthy. But even in the city, trouble followed them. At the gold market, a man named Alhaji Sule offered Bako an incredible sum for the piece. But when Bako hesitated, Sule's smile faded. "You don't know who you are dealing with, boy. Hand it over, or you will regret it." Bako refused and quickly left the market. That night, men came after him again, this time with guns. Bako and Amina barely escaped with their lives, fleeing into the countryside. As the day turned into weeks, Bako's once bright dream of better life turned into a nightmare. He trusted no one, not even Bala, who reappeared and tried to convince Bako he only wanted to help. "You don't understand," Bako said one evening as they hid in an abandoned hut. "This gold has brought nothing but misery. Rather throw it into the river than let it destroy us." "Maybe you should," Amina said softly. What's the point of wealth if it costs us our peace? Bako thought about her words, but he wasn't ready to give up. He had worked too hard to let go of the one thing that could change their lives. One day, a mysterious woman named Aisha approached Bako. She claimed to be an advocate for miners' rights and offered to help him sell the piece safely. Desperate and out of options, Bako agreed. But it was a trap. Aisha led Bako to a secluded location where Sule and his men were waiting. "You should have listened, boy," Sule said, smiling. "Now you've lost everything." As they longed for the peace, Amina screamed, distracting the men just long enough for Bako to fight back. He managed to grab the piece and run, but Amina was captured. Bako's heart broke as he heard her cries, but he couldn't stop. Now, as Bako ran through the forest, clutching the piece, he realized how much he had lost. His sister, his peace, his old life, all gone because of a shiny piece of metal. In a final act of desperation, Bako stopped at the edge of a cliff, overlooking the raging river. Sule and his men were closing in. Bako held the piece up, its golden surface shining in the moonlight. "You want it?" he shouted. "Then go get it." With all his strength, Bako threw the piece into the river. The men froze, their faces twisted in shock and rage. Bako took advantage of their hesitation and ran deeper into the forest. Days later, Bako found his way back to Guswa. But when he tried to find Amina, she was gone. Sule had released her, but she had left a note. "Bako, I'm leaving. The gold changed everything. Find peace without me." Bako's heart sank. The gold had not only stolen his dreams, but his sister too. Months later, Bako returned to the mines. The world around him had changed, but he hadn't. He worked with a quiet determination this time for something priceless, which is peace. And somewhere deep in the river, the peace remained, untouched by human greed, its luster hidden from the world forever. But Bako's story didn't end there. Weeks after returning to the mines, he overheard a conversation between the village chief and a foreign mining consultant. They spoke of a plan to exploit the region's resources, using local miners as pawns while reaping massive profits. Bako realized that his discovery was only a piece of much larger, darker puzzle. Driven by a sense of justice and the need to protect his village, Bako began secretly documenting the corrupt dealings. He connected with underground activists in Guswa who were working to expose the exploitation of miners. Together, they uncovered evidence that implicated powerful politicians and foreign companies. As Bako delved deeper, he learned that his piece had been part of a much larger vein of gold beneath the village. Its existence had been known to the corrupt officials for years, but they had kept it hidden, waiting for the right moment to strip the land of its resources. Out of nowhere, Amina returned one evening. She looked different, stronger, more confident. "I couldn't leave you," she said, her voice steady. "I've been working with a group fighting for miners' rights. They taught me how to fight, how to organize." The siblings reunited, combining their efforts to bring justice to their village. They traveled to Abuja, meeting with journalists and activists who were eager to tell their story. The evidence they had gathered began to make waves, and protests erupted in Zamfara. But the fight wasn't easy. The corrupt officials struck back with threats and violence. One night, Bako and Amina barely escaped an ambush on their way back to the village, yet their determination only grew stronger. The turning point came when Bako discovered that Bala, his childhood friend, was secretly working for the corrupt officials. Bala had been feeding them information all along, hoping to gain a share of the profits. Heartbroken but determined, Bako confronted Bala. "You betrayed us," Bako said, his voice shaking with anger. "All for what? Money that will never bring you peace?" Bala hesitated, guilt dancing across his face. But before he could respond, a sudden gunshot rang out. Sule's men had arrived and chaos erupted. In the commotion, Bako and Amina managed to escape with crucial evidence. Bala, realizing the depth of his betrayal, turned on to Sule's men, buying the siblings enough time to flee. Months later, the fight ended in a national investigation. The corrupt officials were exposed and the mining operations were halted. Bako and Amina's village began to rebuild, this time with a newfound sense of hope and solidarity. Bako stood at the edge of the river one evening, watching the water flow peacefully. "We lost so much," he said softly, "but maybe now we can find peace." Amina nodded. "The real treasure isn't gold, Bako. It's knowing we stood for what's right. And somewhere, deep in the river, the peace remained. A silent reminder of a journey filled with loss, courage, and redemption." And so, Bako and Amina's journey reminded us that true treasure lies in courage, family, and doing what is right. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more captivating tales. See you in the next one.